Coming up, it's back to school time. We're visiting with a history teacher about how to best support Indigenous students. Plus, Native journalists are heading to Phoenix, and Johns Hopkins welcomes a new faculty member. I'm Carrie Johnson. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT newscast. Thank you for joining us. Support is building for a major federal law in Indian country. As of Tuesday, over 20 amicus briefs have been filed by various stakeholders in support of the Indian Child Welfare Act. That 44-year-old law, which protects Native children, has the possibility of being overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. Dan Lawrence, an assistant law professor at the University of North Dakota, breaks this down.
On the other side, you see almost half of the U.S. states, 8 states for every one that the plaintiffs have. You see almost 500 federally recognized tribes and dozens of regional and national tribal organizations. So Indian country is united in support of ICWA.
The Indian Child Welfare Act sets certain requirements during adoption proceedings, all in an effort to prevent Native children from being removed from their families and tribal communities. ICWA has been labeled the gold standard in child welfare policy around the country. The High Court is slated to hear arguments in Brackeen v. Highland in November. When that happens, it will likely be the first time Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson will hear a case involving federal Indian law since joining the Supreme Court.
She has very little experience with Indian law, and so it's hard for us to predict where she might come down on any specific issue.
Lawrence added that he remains confident the court will affirm the constitutionality of ICWA. As November's midterm elections get closer and closer, Indigenous organizers are finding ways to reach voters. ICT's Karina Dominguez has the story.
Skaters are ready to exercise their voting rights after advocates turn to skate parks. In an effort to increase voter turnout among Native youth for the midterm elections, Protect the Sacred and Indian Collective hosted Skate to the Polls on the Navajo Nation.
Civic participation can be joyful, it can be fun. It is fun. We are proving it today at Skate to the Polls. The community showed up, and I'm so proud. They came to celebrate our power.
Advocates say many hurdles stand in the way of Indigenous voters, including infrequent polling places in post offices and limited internet access. Organizers say they want to engage Indigenous, Black, Latinx, and other historically overlooked communities to increase voter turnout.
I am reclaiming my power. I am reclaiming my land. I am reclaiming my power for my community, the Native American community, and the next 7 generations.
More events will take place leading up to the midterms in November, including a Skate to the Polls for students in Georgia, a quinceañera-inspired ride to the polls in trucks and limos for first-time Latina voters in Texas, and an Election Day horseback ride to the polls in Arizona. In Tucson, Arizona, Karina Dominguez, ICT News.
Now to California, where an art installation is highlighting a historic gathering of Indigenous leaders. The Broad Museum in Los Angeles is spotlighting 20 artists in a new exhibition called This Is Not America's Flag. One of the standout installations is Indian Congress by Apsaluki citizen Wendy Red Star. In her work, she recreated the 1898 Indian Congress, which was a gathering of more than 500 representatives from 35 tribal nations in Omaha, Nebraska. The exhibition continues through September 25th, and those are the headlines for the ICT newscast. Coming up, we're visiting with a history teacher who's getting us ready for back to school time. But first, a well-known medical doctor heads east for a new gig. We'll be right back.